Hope everyone's well. Hope everyone's having a good Sunday. This is a quick video on how I use the TradingView crypto screener. I believe Ali's already done a video how to set it up and stuff. This is like how I get my trades, how I find correlations, and how I use it to my benefit. So yeah, just going to run through my setup. A couple of people have DM'd me asking how I use it because I got in a Mask trade yesterday that went down like 6-7% unleveraged, and then I also got in CFX, which also did around similar numbers, if I believe. Yeah, I'm just going to basically talk about how I use it, what I use it for, what I look at, because one thing that I understand is a lot of people tend to get quite well, they tend to like if something runs on the day, if something's up 20% or 25% on the day, people just tend to go short it like that because they think, oh, it's too high, it needs a correction. But there's other factors people don't look at, and sometimes even though a coin moves 20% up on the day, it might actually only be up 5% on the weekly. So it's not an accurate enough representation to short, and it's very easy to get caught in these little traps. What I'm basically just going to go through today is how I use it, and then maybe we'll even look at some extra features that we can use. To start off with, this is strictly for crypto. This is what I'm using it for, crypto pair screener, right? Ali's done it on Forex, I'm doing it for crypto. If you want to see the Forex one, just look at his video because that more or less outlines it perfectly. Crypto is more important because we get so much more bullshit that happens in this market that we can take advantage of. So to begin with, I have two main settings on my screener. I have RSI settings and I have percentage movers. Now, on my RSI settings, these are the tabs that I have. You can add and delete whatever you want. This is what I have, right? So I obviously have the price, which tells me the price of the asset. And it will also tell me the high and low. Now, the high and low will basically change depending on the day, for example. So if you're looking at the daily, the high of the daily for Mask is 6.822 and the low is 5.693. And if I look at something like on the 15-minute Sun, the high is 0.006650, and it's very like small changes if that makes sense. So if I filter it like this, if I look at, let me just type in Mask for example, the 15-minute high and low is 5.962 and 5.938, whereas the daily high and low is 6.822 and 5.693. My point being, the high and low will change according to the time frame that you choose on here. These are the time frames I use, very straightforward. The higher time frames are the most important, of course. And then you have change. Now, the change percent, again, it is regarding time frames. So we have it all the way from a 1 minute to the monthly, and it will tell us the change of that asset in percentage form of that month. Now, I think this is probably one of the most important things that we need to be looking at. Change percent is incredibly important. It's so good as a metric to use because it tells us how much it's moved in a certain time period. And this is kind of where my point comes back to, oh, it's up 20%, I'm going to short. Well, no, it's not technically the right thing to do, because if an asset is only up 20% on the weekly, I don't think it really warrants a short. It just means that a 20% candle on the weekly is a very normal candle to get, in my opinion. 10-20% is completely fine. You kind of get, it starts getting more interesting 50, 60, 70% up and things like that. And so what I basically, my whole point of this is, if you look at OMG, for example, or if you look at Lena, let's take Lena. On the daily, it's pumped up 18.5%, which is quite an overextension. But if we look at Lena on the weekly, it's moved 43% now. It's still up quite a bit, and you could short, but this is now where you start getting technical. You need to like look at the chart. You need to see how much is it up compared to the big drawdown it's had. What are the key areas of resistance, support, whatever. That is something that needs to be considered, in my opinion. So if you click this, it will obviously sort it by highest to lowest movers. If you look at CFX on the weekly, it's up 117%, which is a huge move up. Now, this is kind of where I get interested in, oh, maybe I'm going to be looking at a short on this. When I shorted Mask, it was actually up 108, 109%. So that's how that kind of got on my radar, because you're looking for the meaty swings. Normally, after a big move up, it's just common price action. You're just going to need a little bit of a correction, and that's completely natural in any market, right? So change percent is very, very important. I also have change in numbers, but I don't tend to use it as much. I just have it there because it's kind of helpful. Mainly if we're looking at like Bitcoin and stuff like that. Obviously, this is very different because it will just show me Bitcoin as one of the biggest movers, and it will show me ETH as one of the biggest. So ETH has moved up $223 in the past month. Bitcoin's moved up 5.6k in the last month. Sorry, in the last week, not even the last month. If we look at the last month, it's actually moved up. That was moved up a bit less. But it basically tells us that I don't tend to filter it this way. I tend to filter it this way because it tells me the kind of low cap shit coins that are getting artificially pumped in the market, and it gives us really, really good opportunities to scale into shorts and kind of wait for a pullback on them. So I'm a big fan of this. Obviously, exchange, filter it to what you're on. I trade on Bybit, so everything is on Bybit here. I only look at the coin pairs on Bybit and I want those prices. Other pairs on other exchanges don't really concern me. And then lastly, I also have RSI. Now, RSI, very straightforward. It will just tell you if it is oversold or undersold. I don't actually tend to put any kind of figures into this. When the market's up, I'll filter it from highest to lowest, and the market's down, I'll just filter it from lowest to highest. I just find it easier than having like factors set for me to find exact points. So I just tend to view it this way. Obviously, the market's pumping right now, and I will be looking at RSI on the weekly in this kind of way. Not the weekly, I'm just giving you an example of what my tab is set on, but I will be looking at it in this way. If you see here, the highest is STX with RSI around 82, but it gets a lot more interesting when you go onto the daily, especially if you sometimes go onto the hourly. OMG was actually at 90 plus, and when RSI reaches 90 plus and 10 and below, that's where I get really interested, because normally it just means that it's very, very overextended. It's not had any kind of pullback on that time frame, and it's getting very exhausted, and it most likely wants a pullback. Obviously, remember that the extremes are considered to be 70 and 30, so when we get into 90 plus and minus 10 areas, it means that it's very, very far overextended. So it's just areas that you kind of want to keep a track of. That's so, and then like when all of the factors come together, obviously OMG being up, if we look at the daily, it's up 32% on the day. RSI is coming into 90 on the hourly. When those kind of factors for me align, I'm like, all right, this could make a nice scalp short or something like that. This is really, really useful in like a bull market where you see prices going crazy all the time. You can kind of find the coins which are quite overvalued, have had huge moves, and then figure out what you want to do in that way. I always find it very helpful personally. And then I also use percentage movers. Now this one's a little bit different. You can use it if you want. I don't tend to use it as much as my main RSI setting, but it's quite useful because it will tell me the 5 minute, 15 minute, hourly and 4 hourly change all on one setup basically. So I can look at OMG, I can look at the daily, but it will also tell me these factors. So sometimes what I like to do when I'm looking for pairs to scalp, I'll look at the change overall on the daily, and then I'll use these four to tell me if there's a sudden volume spike. So for example, RSS3 is going up like 1.26% on the 15 minute, which is quite a bit considering in 15 minutes it's having that kind of move. Now, if I filter it like this, things like looks, and they're getting a lot more volume just suddenly appearing very quickly. So in these kind of instances, I will just kind of go look at looks and think, well, what's actually happening? If you're looking at 15 minutes already at 74 RSI and it's climbing quick 83 on the 5 minute. So I might not enter a short yet, but I'll look at it. I'll look to see how it's moving. And sometimes what you get is these sudden squeezes where price will squeeze like 5-10% in a single candle and then get immediately retraced. So if you're able to catch things like that, it's a huge help. So even if I'm looking at 5 minute change, looks is up 3% in 5 minutes, which is quite a big jump. 15 minute, again, it's up 5.29% now on the 15 minute. And now if I want to do that, I can simply just press this and it will just add it to my watch list on my TradingView setup, and I can just go on that, reference it, see what's going on, and then I can make a decision on whether I want to take it or not. It's very good for scalping. It's also very good for them high time frame chunky swings. I always think it's very, very good to be able to get like hedged shorts when the market's at highs, because if it does move down, it will almost always it's these kind of coins that are going to get the hardest hit. It's the kind of low cap coins that are able to pump huge numbers. When the market goes down, they also drop huge numbers. So just something to bear in mind. And then from that point on, what I'd really do is I'll just look to start charting them, see if there's anything new that's coming up, and you can figure out what to do from there. I personally find it extremely helpful. It's helped me a lot. And even if I bring this in here, you can see that this was my OMG short that I called earlier for hidden. I called it an ape scalp. So if you're in it, you'd obviously be in this trade. My entry is 1.923, but we did DCA it and we got a couple of nice fills there. And you can see here, whenever I click it on my screener, when I click Lux gets active. It gets just added into my waitlist right here. I have a couple of others, Mask, CFX. Again, it's only up 6% on the day, right? But it's actually up 117% on the week. So again, I think it's still a very good short. And from there on, I just go, well, where could a kind of retrace be? Where is it already looking a bit bad? Like if you're looking here, there's already a very clear 8-hour divergence. It's just been going up on the daily, but there is selling pressure starting to come in. And then you can kind of think and plan out a trade and take it. That's how I do it. I personally am just scaling into a short for CFX. I have done from yesterday. I've been kind of scalping in and out, selling some off, and then kind of retaking. Same with Mosk. Had a big move up, but I took a little bit more size when it got near this supply area because there is a decent amount of supply right there. And then obviously it just about missed it, wicked, and has kind of gone back down. It was up at one point, I think at just an hour after midnight. It was actually up around 14% on the day. But now it's literally back to break even. So you could have caught like a nice 14% move there. So you don't need huge size because even like $100 would make you a $10 gain. So 1,000 would make you $100 gain. So it's these kind of things I like to look at. And then what tends to happen is it just adds the coins that I choose into my watch list. So you can see OMG's one that I'm looking at. Now macro, it looks like this can really move on the 3-day and stuff. But we are still scalping. That's why, in my opinion, it's not an amazing long-term hold or high time frame hold. But in terms of a scalp on a 15-minute or a 30-minute, I think it will do well because it's very overextended. It's up 30%. It's at resistance, and we took a short, and it's paying well. So that's kind of how you have to look at it. Lux is another example. There's the big kind of move up. So you get these impulse moves, and it's still going. And this is kind of what you want to capitalize on. If you're looking at like the 3-minute, it's at 84. It's nowhere near like done. I still think it can run quite heavy, especially when it's testing this area that has already been tested multiple times. It can just go straight into the 1.75, 1.8, and then if they have these big impulse candles, that's where you can take a huge advantage of them and get a really nice short, and you can be up 5-10% unleveraged in a matter of minutes. So it is very good. It's also very hard for me to call these kind of things because in a single candle, it could easily do something like this. And that's what you want to get in on. These are the kind of pumps that you want to get in on, and they're going to be the biggest, most profitable pumps because they just get sold off straight away. But yeah, that's just a small explanation of how it works. You can see how volume and stuff that we saw on the 5 and 3-minute, it just shows that there's a lot of volume in Lux right now. A lot of people are going to be trying to short this. I don't think they'll do very well because I just don't think it's done yet. Normally what tends to happen is you get a move like this, a lot of people come in short here, it does this for a bit, and then it does something like that. And normally the move you want to short is like the 1-2 moves back, blowing out these shorters right here. And this is where you want to short because then price does something like this. After like obviously stopping them out. So this is what I'd be looking to do. It's very helpful. And yeah, this is just how I use the screener. I highly recommend you use it. It's a very helpful tool. And if you have any questions, let me know, and I'm more than happy to answer them.